A young boy skips stones off the water. 3 stories down, by the riverbank, another seems to be fishing them out. Players of the card game Queen's Blood all hold different actual cards from the game, instead of a generic duplicated one. Pretty cool. An employee at the Haunted Mansion Hotel warns you she's been bitten recently. She doesn't have much time left. Come back later in the game, and she's really turned into a monster. These are just a small selection of the kinds of weird and sometimes strangely meaningful details you can expect from the NPCs of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Let's get into it. Dialogue, design, animation, and annotation. NPCs fill the worlds of our favorite video games in a multitude of ways. I happen to like people watching in games, and I also like virtual photography, aka the use of in-game photo modes and camera tools to frame and compose interesting shots. So at the intersection of those two things, I've been photographing NPCs as my subjects of interest for some time now. I talk to them when I can, follow them around, and I imagine what their lives might be like. I pay extra attention to their clothing, character design, behavior patterns that I think might go unnoticed by the average player. And here's what I learned. In Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is about fighting Sephiroth and saving the planet, and you can feel the developers' love for that planet in just about every corner of its open zones. They made sure to populate the wilderness with a diversity of wildlife. Take the Springseeker Owls, who have unique designs distinct to each region, not just in terms of recolors, but also the flourishes on their ear tufts. The baby chocobos are no different, with tail feathers that have adapted to whatever else is going on in their region. Fungal growth, or desertification, or an abundance of glowing Mako energy. Even their personalities reflect the places they're in, with the chocobos in Cosmo Canyon being far more serene when you pet them. The non-interactable birds, and waterfowl have similarly inspired fantastical designs, and you can, of course, see all manner of fauna trilling about its wilds. Deer and gazelles abound in the grasslands. Gold raccoons skitter amidst the trash near pockets of civilization. Rams and mountain goats roam the hillier areas and take on different shades depending on where you see them. Lemurs scuttle across its tropical jungles. You'll see domesticated animals roaming around the various farms, and just so many cats and dogs. In a particularly noticeable example, you'll see a pack of cats hanging out in an alley in the Nibelheim flashback at the start of the game. And when you return in present day, those cats take an active role in one of the side quests, 5 years on. FF7 Rebirth feels alive, sometimes overwhelmingly so. This naturally extends to its human populations too. As we step beyond Midgar for the second entry in the remake trilogy, be wary that this video contains spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, especially with regards to side quests. There is one caveat. Rebirth's photo mode is woefully restrictive. The camera is orbital, for one thing, meaning you're stuck in a very limited radius around your player character. There is no depth of field slider, and the lighting options are passable at best, so you can't make your subject stand out from the backgrounds in a meaningful way. I see how square-enix uses lighting and focus in the in-engine cutscenes, and I feel jealous. There is breathtaking potential in this world. The camera also likes to hover slightly overhead, so it can be a struggle to get it near ground level. For clarification, this is largely the same photo mode as FF7 remakes, but it's somehow become more restrictive. It is a testament to just how well crafted these NPCs are that I really loved people watching in FF7 Rebirth regardless. Every town has its own culture, its own hobbies and quirks and fashion styles. Most of the ambient dialogue contributes to fleshing out those cultures. Here is a small example of what I mean. Almost every town has a musical performance breaking out in the streets, but the songs, the instruments, the crowds, and the energy forming around the bands are vastly different from one place to the next. Street musicians play in the homely streets of Kalm. A blues band lights up the bar in the wealthy province of Upper Junon. While upbeat swing music rouses the people by the fishermen's taverns in Lower Junon. And the tropical village in Gongaga. Electric guitars blare across the speakers of the Dust Bowl. Tourists gather around folk musicians in the sacred town of Cosmo Canyon. Tourists also gather around the ukulele and hula dance performances of Costa del Sol. Book your tickets today. That's to say nothing of the Gold Saucer, FF7's iconic theme park level, which features so many dance numbers in Rebirth that it is difficult to keep track of. Enjoy the show. This is all lovely to watch at a distance, but my frustration with the photo mode stems from how often Rebirth's NPCs just beg to be studied, still and up close. More critically, it stems from the fact that Rebirth wants you to think its photo mode is a bigger deal than it is. Like many other AAA games of the moment, it introduces photography side quests for the player to indulge in. Characters will comment on how expert a photographer Cloud is becoming, and as you snap scenic spots, you'll unlock new filters for the mode. These filters are passable. Most of the time you still run into the issue of your foregrounds and backgrounds blending together. This would all be fine if the game didn't call so much attention to virtual photography in the strangest way. Before I talk about any other NPC, I have to cover Snaps. He's the resident photography quest giver. And let it never be said I can't laugh at my own expense, because I feel like he sounds like a parody of me.
Brittle houses in the sea air, paint chipping and wood bending, time moving on. A striking work of craftsmanship too. Every detail was seen to with such care.
And I love him. Snaps is fun. He has genuinely interesting things to say about Rebirth's locales, but his quests are cursory. Most of your busy work in this game is about gathering world intel, which is a fancy way of saying you're uncovering lore and filling out a codex. But world intel does at least serve the game thematically. FF7 is a game about an ecological crisis, and you're studying and cleaning the planet you so desperately want to protect. There are clear objectives around this. On the other hand, taking pictures is an inherently exploratory process. What subject is or isn't interesting is, well, subjective. So for the game to treat it in the same way as your other side quests, with waypoints you have to visit and launch photo mode in, feels overly directed, especially when you see Cloud fiddling with his camera after the fact. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is about fighting Sephiroth and saving the planet, but it's also, on a deeper and more moment-to-moment level, about making the most of the time you have with the people you love, while you still have it. It's about making memories. That's why quite a few quests end with your picture being taken in a cutscene. I just wish the gameplay system synergized with this too, as they did so well in Final Fantasy XV before it. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad the game includes a photo mode at all, because it lets me take sick action shots. But I actually think the first-person camera they hand you in 2 or 3 side quests could have been a permanent fixture in addition. A way to make personalized, in-universe memories with your party in the same way 15 nailed, even before it had a photo mode. It also offers a more dynamic, immersive way of feeling out Rebirth's world up close. You can see the hustle and bustle and sense of life in motion through Cloud's eyes in the way this implies but doesn't convey. I'm addressing all of this up front for two reasons. One, because I want to explore what Rebirth ultimately says about the power of a photograph, and two, because this video features an awkward camera angle or two around the NPCs, just by virtue of the limitations I'm working with. But I do promise that they're worth admiring nonetheless. The developer's attention to detail, design, continuity, and the larger FF7 universe is so apparent in how they use their NPCs, and I want to help unpack that. Before I start delving into individual towns, here are the main what I learned soundbites about Rebirth's NPCs. 1. In my FF7 remake video, I mentioned that the people living in Upper Midgar dressed quite differently from those slumming it in Lower Midgar. It was a cool way of showing wealth disparity through fashion, as well as of showing the Undercity had its own cheap, albeit stylish and functional, trends. Remake did this even though you spent minimal time above the plate. But now that you're exploring some glamorous destinations and tourist hotspots, you'll be seeing more of those higher-end wardrobes. Some NPCs are even holding these magazines, advertising Midgar fashion. 2. The NPCs get quite the glow-up from Remake. Here, you can see their arms had this plastic look to them in 2019. But now, they're a lot more toned and defined. You can even see their veins bulging out in some places, and detailed musculature. Wrinkles on older civilians. Scratch marks. 3. Rebirth uses NPCs in much the same way most Final Fantasy games do. They aren't randomized and sent out to fill the map, but instead, set and specific characters who populate set locations and cycle the same idle animations. They don't have routines either. But there is still a lot to them, because those same NPCs will develop or update their dialogue, locations, or animations based on where you're at in the game. Their moods and actions are affected by current affairs. It's a joy to track these people's arcs. Some of them flesh out the world, while others are just funny to get to know. Take this woman, who's crushing on Rufus Shinra when you first arrive in Kalm.
So, let me get this straight. Rufus Shinra, the new president, is the son of the old one?
Yeah, but he's still so young. Don't know if he can handle all that responsibility.
Who cares? He's hot! Like, really hot.
Hotness is not a qualification.
And later, worried about Rufus's mental health when war breaks out with Wutai.
But either way, people think there's gonna be a war. Or worse.
Who cares about all that? I'm much more worried about Rufus's physical and mental health. If I ever get my hands on those resistance people, I'll punish them for what they did to my Rufus!
This has quickly turned into one of my favorite ways to see developers handle NPCs. It's a nice way of balancing efficiency, asset reuse and short memorable animations, with rich detail. We see continuity and get a sense of motion and progression over time. In many cases, this is intentional. Here's Rufus's presidential inauguration, for instance. His fangirl from Kalm actually shows up here.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe I'm in the same city as Rufus!
Even sounds like the same voice, no? But she also shows up a lot here. See, in other cases, these are happy accidents, left to the player's interpretation. But happy is the key word here. Square repeats her character model a lot throughout the parade, often with different voices, but also a couple of times as a Rufus fangirl.
I heard the Rufus fan club was selling a limited edition photo book here.
One could be a deliberate callback, but a whole gaggle? That's coincidence, baby. But purposeful or not, it's funny in a whole other, more tongue-in-cheek way. And to me, that's more interesting than knowing this was all canonical intent. We'll be seeing both kinds throughout this video. 4. For PS5 players, if you want to get as much out of the ambient dialogue as you can, you'll want to go into your settings and make sure you're exploring towns in graphics mode. I noticed performance mode actually despawns a handful of NPCs so as to run more smoothly. This is typical for a lot of games' performance modes, but since the characters here are actual set characters and not procedurally generated, I do feel there's some value in seeing their different actions. The best examples of this shine bright in Costa del Sol. We've seen and heard about various kinds of materia pop ice cream. But here, you can find specialty ones that are not only materia-shaped, but also magically flavored, complete with fun particle effects. Performance mode only spawns one NPC trying one flavor, but on graphics mode, you can catch them all. There's a Cure flavor.
Cure is as refreshing as a summer breeze.
A Blizzard flavor.
Blizzard's freaking freezing! My tongue's falling!
Fire.
Fire's got a kick. Like I've got, not brain freeze, but brain burn?
Thunder.
I know it's called thunder, but my tongue is seriously tingling!
And for whatever reason, a poison flavor.
Whoa, this is something else. Poison is intense.
God, I love this game.
Oh, crap! It's time! I'm stuck in slow motion.
Grab a materia pop and give your taste buds a magical infusion!
PC players, fortunately, are able to adjust NPC density as a bespoke option in their display settings. And finally, that attention to detail and continuity stretches beyond Rebirth to include the larger FF7 universe. While Rebirth won't nudge almost every NPC forward at every step of the game like Final Fantasy XVI does, it is more hardcore about being self-referential. There's more focus on world building and interconnectivity than on the individual NPCs themselves. It's a bit daunting in that regard. In the opening town of Kalm, for instance, you can overhear a character daydreaming about the blonde he once saw perform in Walmart.
You think we ought to cancel our Honeybee Inn trip?
No way. It's times like this you really gotta let loose. Plus, I can't pass up a chance at seeing that blonde queen again.
Which is a fun callback to the cross-dressing sequence from last game. You can also overhear one daydreaming about the steamed buns they sell in Midgar.
I'll never forget those steamed buns. The mincemeat filling was heavenly. That's my one regret about leaving Midgar for good. No more stopping off for Sector 8 buns. I used to eat them every day.
Which is an allusion to the novel Final Fantasy VII Trace of Two Pasts, where you learn about the prominence of those steamed buns. Selling them was actually Tifa's first job in Midgar.
I'll miss that girl too. My little steamed honey bun. Oh, I wonder if she's still selling them.
In Costa del Sol, there's a bouncer in front of a giant locked door who shoos you away if you get close.
You stumbled into the wrong place or what, punk? This is Club Duel. Tough to get in, tougher to make it out alive. Much as I'd love to give you a warm welcome, we're closed for renovations. Consider yourself lucky.
Club Duel was actually a location in the old mobile game before Crisis. Sure enough, located in Costa del Sol. It's a cool inclusion here. Of course, the trade-off here is that these particular NPCs feel like extensions of the FF7 world and brand, rather than like, well, characters.
I heard they opened a materia pop stand.
What? Why aren't we there now?
Mileage may vary on when that works for you versus when it doesn't. Anyway, throughout this video, you'll see a barrage of charming details that exemplify all of these aforementioned points to varying degrees, and I'll try to interpret the ones I personally found most compelling. Who knows? Maybe we'll pick up on more trends and add to our takeaway count too. For now, our journey begins in... Nibelheim, the village where Cloud and Tifa grew up, is one of the very few places that actually replicates some dialogue from the 1997 original. Have a look at these two kids.
You're Shinra? Shinra?
It's a precious reference. I love it. Thanks to Kate Sith, we can actually circumvent the photo mode's camera height issue in Nibelheim. It's bound to your player character's height instead of defaulting to Cloud's, so that's a nice benefit of his playable section here. This lets us get a closer look at the various games kids here are playing. There's a themed version of Red Light, Green Light, referencing the sickly robed figures that now populate the town.
3, 2, 1, Rope Man!
And a play-acted fight where the kids take turns being legendary hero Sephiroth.
I'm Sephiroth this time.
They even get Sephiroth's battle pose right. Funnily enough, this vignette looks like a classic battle from the original when freeze-framed. 3 party members versus a boss.
Bow wow wow, bow wow wow, he's a good boy who never stops, keeping our city safe for each and everyone.
Here's Takeaway 6 for ya. Kids play different games in different towns, and those games all reflect something about the values present in those towns. In places like Nibelheim or Kalm, where Shinra has a strong presence, children play act at being soldier or Shinra troops.
Paratroopers away! Go, go, go! When we become Shinra troopers for real, we'll travel all over the world in an airship. Yeah! We'll show those bad guys who's boss!
The company's brand image and military recruitment propaganda are nothing if not pervasive, even in play. We saw this in the first game too. Schools in Lower Midgar would teach the story of Shinra's mascot, Stamp the cartoon dog.
La 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 la. Go all out, go all out, go all out, little Stamp.
Games are competitive. In Kalm, you can see a group playing tag.
Morning! What do you want to do today once everyone gets here? We're gonna play hide and tickle today, because we played rat race yesterday, right? We are, don't worry. We'll decide who's it when the others come. Ready or not, here I come! Come out, wherever you are.
I love the animations on this one.
Found you! Stop! Stop!
Even on the cruise ship to Costa del Sol, they'll pretend to fight each other for fun. In Upper Junon, they roam the streets looking for stamps of, well, stamp to collect. Meanwhile, Lower Junon or the Crow's Nest or Gongaga are far less amenable to Shinra's influence. Kids are taught the history of their communities and of how they were hurt by Shinra. So games tend to be cooperative and more in tune with the natural environment around them. In Lower Junon, Priscilla teaches them how to communicate with the town dolphin, and they practice without her too. Kids might also jump into the water for a swim together. Or let themselves be hit by toad magic to play around as toads. In the Crow's Nest, they run around freely, exploring their home. And in Gongaga, you can see this girl pranking her friend by the water. Of course, with the animation being in a loop, he looks like the most gullible boy alive. I like to think their other friend behind them already got dunked. In Corel, which was also victimized by Shinra, you can spot kids walking along the old railway tracks. There's a lot of apocalyptic imagery in FF7R, but I love that the kids find ways to kid around and experience joy in spite of it. They make do with whatever's around them. So, in Shinra territories, that manifests as competitive games with recognizable man-made names. Soldier, Ropeman, Hide and Tickle. And in the more independent settlements, this means just playing in nature, collaborating, and getting up to mischief. Anyway, let's return to Nibelheim. You see 2 versions of the town in Rebirth. First, in a flashback about Cloud's backstory, which ends with his home getting razed to the ground. And later in present day, occupied by actors who cover up the Nibelheim incident and pretend they've lived here all along. It's a bitter sight for Cloud and Tifa. Naturally, there's minimal continuity between those versions on account of, well, you know. But recall that empty lot full of cats in the flashback, and how it's followed through with a 5 years later quest in present day. Firstly, one of those cats is Tifa's cat Fluffy, seen in both Before Crisis and Traces of Two Pasts. Secondly, director Naoki Hamaguchi himself highlights the thought they put into this foreshadowing, stating they seeded a lot of these details early to pay off later. Another example is the crowd of townsfolk doing Zangan's exercises in the town square. Cloud can actually join in for a bit. I love that the different townspeople have varying levels of stamina.
Zanga! Okay! Put your fingertips together and lift your hands to the sky!
Some of them will struggle, or even give up partway through. If you hit the exercises before meeting Zangan, you'll see a substitute trainer. Come back after, and he'll take over the lesson himself. Skip ahead to present day, and you'll see those exercises are still going strong, now used to help the robed figures keep up with their health. By adding these things, says Hamaguchi, and even involving them in quests, we felt that it really tied together this feeling that this is an organic place, a living, breathing village. That's how we want the player to perceive it. The people of Nibelheim are simple country folk, though many dream of leaving the village like Cloud did.
You know, I've been thinking about joining the military for some time now. If you need help, just say the word.
Consequently, their clothes are simple too. We see plaid shirts, vests, lots of vests, in fact, overalls, and cowgirl hats and bonnets. There are myriad patterns that can appear on those clothes and dresses. And a nice range of haircuts. Some folks wear headscarves too. The younger kids might wear graphic tees, which you can also see hung up drying here. There's a farmland aesthetic here that the original Nibelheim didn't really have. Kids can also be seen feeding chickens, or chasing them around. In the present-day version, that sense of liveliness mellows out. Robed figures who are victims of Mako poisoning stumble around the town, while doctors and physical therapy professionals try their best to support them.
Wow, you're doing great today. Keep it up.
Let's take a little break and try again, alright?
Also, if you've paid attention to the general fashion sense here, you can easily distinguish who the tourists are at a glance, before even hearing their dialogue.
You know, I came up around here, way back in the day. It's strange. None of the buildings look like I remember. And where did all the people who used to live here go?
The incidental dialogue alludes to, without confirming too explicitly, the fact that everyone here is a Shinra settler, or an actor hired to cover up the town's true history, here for a limited tenure.
I keep asking who moved where, but no one will tell me anything.
There's nothing here, you know.
Living out here in the country has done wonders for my health.
Life is so much more relaxed here. I love it.
The town hall is clearly run by Shinra now too. It works as an embassy of sorts between the people who settled here and wherever they're originally from.
My mom needs to move in with me. I know you allow that for immediate family.
Like I told you before, by the time we finish running our mandatory background check, your term here will already be up.
Then can I at least get an advance on my salary so I can send her the gills she needs?
All contracts are paid out at the end of the term. I can offer you a loan, but...
One detail I like is that when you're running around as Kate Sith, the staff's eye lines will actually travel down to match his height as they're greeting him.
It turns out that Shinra's in charge of the treatment facilities here. Getting permission to take pictures was not easy. All my photos will be reviewed, and if Shinra sees something they don't like, it's theirs.
Spoiler warning for the original Final Fantasy VII. You can skip to the Kalm section if you're only playing the re-trilogy. What I love about the flashback sequence is that Cloud is an unreliable narrator, and so the NPC interactions reflect that too. He remembers a triumphant return.
Oh my gosh, Cloud! Have you gone to see your mother yet?
Are you super strong?
In which his fellow townspeople recognized him, all grown up and here to help them.
Wait a minute. Is that Cloud? Silly boy! You should have let us know you'd be paying us a visit.
Do my eyes deceive me, or is that little Cloud Strife? Why, I almost didn't recognize you in that uniform of yours.
You've grown so much since the last time we saw you. Oh, did you come looking for Tifa?
They cheer him on with enthusiasm. Of course, if you've played the original, you'll know that Cloud didn't actually take off his helmet in Nibelheim, out of shame that he had only come back still a lowly grunt. It's cool that we don't just see the NPCs as they were, but as he misremembers them. One of the things about this project is that NPCs often highlight the artificiality of games. They walk and talk in loops, they rarely interact with the objects around them. In some games, they praise the player so much it can feel uncomfortable. That's what makes Nibelheim so uniquely interesting. The town itself is artificial. Nibelheim does not exist. The two versions of it you see are as a flashback with an unreliable narrator, and as a cover-up, populated by new settlers who hide its past to maintain PR. There are even restrictions on what snaps can and can't document. When these townspeople praise Cloud, I know it's a delusion. The point is not to put the player on a pedestal, but to complicate our understanding of the character's ego.
Those soldiers certainly are handsome, don't you think?
And such model citizens, too. Oh, I should have encouraged my son to enlist when he was younger.
Likewise, when NPCs play the same game in the same spot across two completely different time periods, or follow familiar walking paths, I can assume this is some kind of trace tradition persisting across the years, even after the original townspeople passed on. Nibelheim is imitating a past it pretends it does not have, and it feels haunted by it. Mechanically, it's a reuse of assets. Sure, whatever. Narratively, it's an interesting display of how Shinra interpreted and vetted that past. The presence of the robed figures, who are victims of Shinra's sins now left to aimlessly stumble around, makes it especially so. It's a situation where some of the video game artifice makes sense, and even feels poignant. Nibelheim's NPCs are kind of great, in a sad way. I also like how the ominous Mount Nibel looms in the background, an ever-present reminder of the stink of death that haunts this place. There's an old legend about the souls of the dead resting somewhere just beyond it, and with its ragged ridges jutting into the sky. Ah, damn
like
it,
something
Snaps.
out of a fantastical painting. I can't imagine the folks in those treatment centers sleep easy with Mount Nibel looming behind them.
Let me handle the narration. I will not be mocked. I'm going to take a deep breath. I am going to remain Kalm is my favorite town in Rebirth, even beating out heavy hitters like Costa del Sol and the Gold Saucer. Maybe it's because it's the first town you freely explore. Maybe it's because of the homely new arrangement of Nobuo Uematsu's On Our Way that just stirs my soul. Kalm is cozy in every sense of the word, and it's filled with fun, quirky, and unique NPCs. There's a giant Mako tank in the middle of the town square, which the people rely on for their energy, and here you can see two rival maintenance workers who both...
Oh, looking adorable as ever, my darling little Mako tank.
Talk to it.
That weirdo's whispering sweet nothings to the Mako tank again. Can't he see the pipes have got it going on? The way they glisten in the sunlight.
But clearly consider the other the weird one.
Oh no, you've got a bit of a stain. Don't worry, I'll take care of that for you.
Here, you can see a troupe practicing their dance for the upcoming Harvest Festival.
forget to smile. Make sure you stay on the beat.
I believe the scene references the opening chapter of 2006 Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus, which begins with a festival in Kalm featuring a similar dance sequence. I'm curious if we'll see the festival proper in the third entry. There is a slightly more quote-unquote macho rehearsal just behind them, as men in suits train their bodies in case of another invasion.
1, 2. Everything that we do is for the reactors.
Only one man here captures my heart though. Just behind the dance troupe is a suit holding a giant bouquet, waiting on his date. His voice actor captures his frantic, nervous energy perfectly, and his story actually progresses over the course of the game. Here's him at the beginning.
She's late. Too late. Or am I here too early? Was getting here a day ahead of time overkill? Maybe I got a little carried away with this whole proposal business, but the weekly horoscope was crystal clear. Preparation is key. How else am I supposed to interpret that?
And after Kalm gets horrifically raided by Shinra troopers,
something good has to be in store for me after suffering through that interrogation. Patience is always rewarded, right?
and finally, here's him at the end.
She dumped me! She seriously dumped me! Where did I go wrong? Should I have tried to ask her out before begging her to marry me? But the weekly horoscope was clear as day! It said to cast all doubts aside and seize the moment!
Poor guy. I have to say though, is it that ludicrous to believe in horoscopes in, like, Final Fantasy? I don't know. I'll leave you with that one. Do you want to see a happier love story?
Is this really the time to be going out on a date? You heard what happened in Midgar, right?
Some reactors were bombed, a plate fell, and then a tornado rolled through town. Taken all together, it's enough to suggest the whole world's coming to an end.
So what? The apocalypse comes and you decide you want to spend your final moments with me? Huh, that's weirdly romantic.
There's a couple who get their date interrupted by the Shinra raid as well.
I can't believe we got arrested in the middle of our date!
It was kinda cool, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, and when that guy decked you, whoa!
Hey, Avalanche, thanks a ton. That was just the spark our date needed.
But revisit them at the end of the game, and you'll see they're still laughing about it, making plans to become more serious.
If war really does break out, we probably won't be able to keep going on dates like this.
If you're worried about that, I think we should tie the knot. I promise you, babe, you'll never have a boring day with me.
That's the truth. I never know what kind of trouble you'll attract.
It's a particularly charming one. There are actually a lot of love stories peppered throughout the world of Rebirth. One of the funniest ones features these two women, who have just arrived in Kalm from Midgar.
Breathe in that fresh air. Take in the never-ending sky. Goodbye, Midgar. Hello, freedom. This is just what I needed to put that creep behind me.
Ugh, that absolute pig. I can't believe he dumped both of us.
The nerve. Wait, you were dating him too? How am I only finding out about this now? What the hell?
Both were seeing the same scumbag, and after discovering this, they get into a fight over it.
This is for him! Hey, quit it! Actually, we're a pretty good match. You hussy! Excuse me?
In more ways than one, maybe?
Come back at the end?
Hey, let's go on a date on our next day off.
Okay, how about the gold saucer?
I hear they do all kinds of fun couples events. I'd love to go.
And they're actively planning their next date. Good for them, I think. That doesn't mean everyone is lucky in love, though. Here's Takeaway 7. The main characters and villains of Rebirth are obviously a lot more eye-catching than the incidental NPCs. Their models are naturally more detailed, their costumes more stylized and fantastical, etc. So unsurprisingly, they stand out and NPCs take notice. Kids will gather around to gawk at Nanaki, for instance.
He's got tattoos!
Those children won't stop staring. If they so much as try to pet me...
And our human characters? A lot of NPCs crush on them in a way that almost feels meta. There's the Cloud and Drag enjoyer in Kalm, of course. But also these two men, the sole two members of their self-declared singles club. They briefly get wowed by Tifa and Aerith.
I just spied the cutest chick. Light pink dress, ribbon in her hair. I think I'm in love, man. Can't let this one get away.
Seriously, bro? Well, I spotted a girl with the best physique I've ever seen.
Wow, I can't believe I missed her. As a founding member of the singles club, I should have been paying more attention.
You do know we're the only ones in that club, right?
It's really funny seeing the singles club practice their manliness as you progress throughout the game.
So, what exactly are we supposed to do after we spot a cute chick?
Fear not, brother. All you gotta do is channel your inner alpha dunk, then charge.
Okay, I picture myself as more of a wolf, but I can do that.
Yes! Behold the power of the singles club! Nothing can stop us!
Yeah! You're the best, bro!
Alright, one more time! I'm gonna charge at you with the burning passion of 1,000 suns!
Let me have it!
They're just so dumb.
Here I come, dear brother! Time to channel my inner alpha dunk and charge!
I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but there's also this man, who spots Alina across the bar from him in Junon, and thinks to himself,
that girl in the suit looks pretty down, but I could cheer her up. Though as much as I want to buy her a drink, she's got a real intense vibe about her. Might be too much for me to handle.
Oh, God. Talk about humiliating. Rude probably hates me. Boss must want to fire me.
Or this woman who daydreams about Scarlet over in Corel.
Back when the reactor was being built, there was this Shinra exec, Scarlet. I'll never forget her. She wore these stunning red dresses, and the way she laughed. Can still smell her perfume. Wish I knew what it was. I'd follow that princess to the ends of the world if she let me.
Or these many Rufus fans in Upper Junon, during the celebrations leading up to his presidential inauguration.
My wife is completely obsessed with the new president.
He's definitely growing in popularity. All of his merch is constantly sold out.
Remember our mission, to cultivate love and adoration for Rufus Shinra all over the world. So let's get in there and take as many photos as we can.
Back in Kalm, there's even someone who's into the local innkeeper, Broden.
Oh gosh, don't tell my husband.
It's all good fun. Kalm also features this man who has written an epic script about a Baron Kylegate.
I am Baron Kylegate. Behold the towering wall that I have built. The future of Kalm is bright indeed.
No, that won't do at all. We'll never draw crowds to the theater with hackneyed drivel like this.
A reference to a character from Nojima's short story collection, On the Way to a Smile.
I am Baron Kylegate, and I will make you rue the day you decided to cross me, Shinra. Now squirm like the worms you are!
Everyone loves a good revenge tale.
He'll be evangelizing about his script basically every time you see him. And over time, Baron Kylegate becomes Muten Kylegate, as he's called in Nojima's book. A man who was fired from Shinra and sought revenge.
I will construct the wall to protect this town for all eternity. Now come and shower me with praise for my magnificent accomplishments. For I am none other than Muten Kylegate. Oh, why hello there. Have you come to see our latest production? It's free for a limited time. Except even that doesn't seem to be enough incentive. It doesn't make sense. The people should be flocking to the theater. Don't they need something to distract themselves from all the horrible news these days?
Easily my favorite interaction in town, though, is this elderly father who laments his falling out with his son, someone who moved away to Midgar to become a famous singer.
My boy and I had a big falling out. He moved to Midgar because of it. Word is, he's a well-known singer now.
If you look closely at his poster, you might notice that the son, Akira, was in Final Fantasy VII Remake, performing in a dingy old bar in Midgar.
Top of the charts, baby, here you come!
Want an autograph?
I had actually photographed him for my episode on Remake. He'd even booked out a giant billboard in Wall Market. Anyway, Akira's career seems to be taking off.
I finally tracked down a music disc of my son's. His name's Akira, in case I hadn't mentioned. He's developed quite a following in Wall Market.
When you return here later, you'll find that his dad has reconciled with him, and now advertises his concerts in Kalm.
The rising star of Kalm! Don't miss Akira's homecoming concert! Adored in Wall Market and the world over! His silky smooth voice is sure to stir your soul!
Run inside and enjoy the show. Cloud sure will.
Hey, Kalm. Remember the night, it was you and I. Golden sparks, blooming bright, flowers that fill the sky.
He performs more songs too. Here's some fun trivia about the 1997 original. Motomu Toriyama, who worked as an event planner, created the NPC the Shinra Middle Manager, and would often insert him into scenes he had worked on as a kind of signature. He played around with the NPC Johnny to a lesser extent too. This all feeds back into the larger thesis I have in my NPC photography series. Let's call this point 8 for the purposes of this video. NPCs can offer a way for individual developers to leave their own unique personal marks and perspectives in these massive AAA games, between all their scope and scale. Toriyama is now a full-fledged co-director on the remake trilogy, and Johnny and the Middle Manager have expanded roles as well, so he mentions, in an interview with Frontline JP, that he wanted to create a character he could play around with more freely again. After Remake, and now through Rebirth, he sees Akira as that character. He even mentions wanting to give him another big scene in the third entry. I, for one, am looking forward to it. By the way, if you sit through everything, Akira caps off his concert with the piece that launched his career last game.
This last song is the one that kicked off my career. The tale of a small town kid that the big city got the best of. Midgar Blues.
Midgar, I left my one true love behind.
I hope to see you at my next gig.
It is almost impossible to compress how much rich detail there is in Kalm. The most random one might be that there's a kid who skips stones off the water. And if you swim down the river, another seems to be fishing them out? By the bookstore, you can see two groups of NPCs chattering away. One of the pairings insults each other's tastes, while the other is excited to geek out over their common interests. The comic book character they're discussing, Kid G, I spent much of Rebirth thinking he was just a fun piece of pop culture in the game world, especially since there's a light show about him at the amusement park. But he turns out to be an actual character in Corel Desert. He's also a reference to a minor enemy type from the original, you know, with a speaking role this time. I love that they foreshadow his name this early in the game. Older RPGs always did this, of course. You talk to an NPC, and they'll usually drop a hint about something you might encounter later on. But in Rebirth, it feels a little special and a little different. I wasn't talking to any one person, I was eavesdropping on hundreds. And this bit of joy between two friends eked out into the world.
No worries, I'll lend you my copy. Oh, but don't spoil anything for other people, okay?
That latest issue was the best yet!
Wasn't it though? Which part was your favorite?
Kid G for sure! Man, I literally jumped up and cheered when he hit Cactor the 7th with his Mega Punch!
I want to know what's up with that treasure in Corel Desert.
There's some fun stuff in the other low-texture books around town. A Business Weekly-style magazine with President Shinra on the cover, a little quiz about being a cat person versus a dog person. You can see FF iconography like Moogles, bombs, and Banora apples printed on the drinks in the vending machines. Some of my other favorite scenes include that of this woman, spraying a canopy of hanging plants, and the painter hanging out near her, who seems to be painting those very plants. Come back near the end of the game, and his painting will be fully developed. Apparently, pizza is big in Kalm. You can see an NPC spinning and flipping pizza dough too. Near a cafe, there's a journalist who clacks away at his typewriter, with a pile of books near him for research. He's looking into the Mako poisoning victims and Shinra's involvement with them. Just one table away, a man reads the local newspaper, filled with images of Shinra troops. Shinra's influence is clearly felt here, however idyllic the vibes may be. The kids are enamored by it. The adults are a little more divided. One townsperson even expresses relief that they can reap the benefits from Shinra's reactors without having to live too near them.
Reactors are terrible for nearby farmlands, which is why I'm glad we get our Mako from Midgar. Let them deal with the fallout while we reap the benefits. You can visit those farms and ranches in the grasslands outside of town too. The NPCs here aren't particularly noteworthy, but it is cool to see them at work, and to be able to see where Kalm gets a lot of its dairy and produce from.
This stuff here ain't feed for the animals, it's their bedding. When it ain't been dried enough, they get all bent out of shape. Start pecking at my head like it's a damn hay barrel.
Was with my bird since he was hatched, and now he's gone. I know I gotta get it together and move on, but knowing it and doing it are...
In town, these local products are then directly used to make ice cream and various desserts. And coffee at the cafes. The unique NPCs who challenge you to Rebirth's very addictive card game have more distinct characterizations. And in Kalm, I'll highlight this young girl in particular, who's a ventriloquist with a creepy light-up doll named Mr. Cuddlesworth.
Huh. Just so you know, Nate and her cards are ready for a game, if you got the guts.
I love the light-up heart-shaped clock on Cuddlesworth's chest. Speaking of dolls, one of those niche cultural details that makes Kalm feel like its own unique place is this wooden doll that's apparently taking the population by storm.
All natural, made from local wood. Guaranteed to bring you closer to that special someone too. Brings you good luck and keeps you safe to boot. There's nothing this doll can't do. Sold only in Kalm, the perfect souvenir.
Here's the carver who came up with it, who is noticeably more excited than the carvers who actually carve and mass-produce it.
Who knew there was so much gil to be made in this wooden doll business?
Get out! You make those? My wife picked one up recently. Said it's the cutest.
Cute, huh? I'd say they look like the stuff of nightmares, but to each their own.
Been no end to the overtime ever since the boss decided to take on a bunch of new orders.
Yeah, it's the same with me. Making wooden dolls day in, day out.
At the local inn, you'll see a man with a slightly different doll habit. He's collecting the plushies they sell at the Gold Saucer, and he always sits surrounded by them.
So, how much do you need this time? Would another 300 gil cover it?
500 would be ideal.
But that's all, and then I can get Fuzzy Wuzzy.
It's a great gag. At least he's getting along better than the Singles Club.
We of the Singles Club sadly remain as single as ever. But don't give in to despair, my dear brother. We're not throwing in the towel yet!
Kalm might not be a tourism center, but it is a commercial one, and the outfits here are a bit more dapper and deep-colored than what we've seen so far. Take a look. There's plenty of low texture but variegated food items at the cafes too, giving off the feel of a real market center. I'd go. There's also a couple who frantically takes turns photographing each other. I was pleasantly surprised by how many cameras I saw in Rebirth. Again, it's a game about making memories, and the NPCs care about that too. With how many tourist-heavy areas there are in the game, and in fact how much the game revolves around the value of tourism, it only makes sense.
Just gotta cross those mountains and then we'll be in Junon. From there, we'll take the ferry to Costa del Sol.
It's gonna be great! I feel like I can already hear the waves crashing on the beach!
Brittle houses in the sea air, paint chipping and wood bending, time moving on. Junon is a pastiche of contrasts. Like its sibling city Midgar, it's under Shinra occupation and segregated into an upper level for the affluent and a lower one for the working class. Lower Junon is a seaside town where the primary industries are sailing and fishing. How is this woman so zen? Look at her! She's swinging her rod one-handed. Ma'am? Ma'am, are you fishing or are you chilling? She's chilling. This guy is fishing. Once an independent floating city in the water, partially made up of a flotilla, Junon lost in the war with Shinra, who went on to build a reactor in the water there. Their oceans have suffered for it. Their economy has too. A teacher in the town square shows us what their home used to look like, before it became this downtrodden.
People never needed Shinra to survive, but somewhere along the line, we forgot how.
Watchguards survey the horizon in case of attacks by sea. An old man feeds these funky seagulls on the beach. There isn't much to note about general costuming here, though it's just very funny to me that they live by the ocean and their hats say, ocean. Lower Junon uses largely the same NPC pool as fellow impoverished towns Nibelheim or North Corel, but whereas Nibelheim kept an earthy, rustic farmland vibe, here we see more of a coastal fishery aesthetic. We've got unique dockworker NPCs in blue, and large rubber gloves. Here's a quick overview.
With all the ways to cure fish, it's practically an art form.
As individuals, Rebirth's NPCs are often one-dimensional caricatures as we've seen, but it's as agents in an interconnected world that they really start to shine. You can see activists passing out flyers in Lower Junon.
We're recruiting for Crows Against Shinra. Let's stand up to our corporate oppressors.
And those activists come from the Crow's Nest, a nearby settlement outside Shinra's jurisdiction. Go there, and you can see the flyers actually getting made, the promotional plans being laid out.
So we have to galvanize the people, collect more signatures, post more flyers! If we want to restore Junon's waters to their brilliant blue, then we cannot rest for even a moment! We can win this fight if we stand tall and stand together! Who's with me? Yeah!
The residents here left Lower Junon to be independent from Shinra. They are ideologically distinct from those who stayed behind and clung to the past. Those who saw land and history as part of their identity. There's a very alt subculture vibe to it all. Have a look.
The sky stretches on forever.
Was the sky always this big?
While kids in Lower Junon just learn history, the ones at Crow's Nest learn slogans and calls to action.
So never forget, children, that the ocean is counting on you.
Okay!
And what do we always say? No tears until our waters are crystal clear.
No tears until our waters are crystal clear!
They're told to use those lessons to look forward. Lower Junon's a bit more traditional, but who knows? As we've seen, the game's population is nothing if not diverse. In gender, in age, in body type, in sexuality, in belief.
Rufus will come out on top. The rich and powerful always do.
I respect the sea, and it'll be a cold day in hell before I work a Shinra ship.
A pastiche of contrasts.
The Crows are recruiting. Tensions with Shinra are high. There's a large crowd of protesters by the elevator to Upper Junon. Why don't we take the ride up? Upper Junon is a world of difference from its counterpart. It's a metropolitan commercial fever dream, theater marquees advertising different genres of now playings, from the blockbuster Attack of the Weapon, to a western horse girl drama, chocobo girl drama, to a B-horror flick with one of those pumpkin monsters you fight later. Books at the popcorn stands include comics about Stamp and magazines for the Air concert. The people here are clearly more affluent too, as most of the dialogue has to do with shopping.
What do you think about this brooch?
It's fine.
You think my girlfriend would like it?
Let me take a closer look. This brooch has 2 machine guns on it, and you want to give it to your girlfriend? Bro.
The store stock cool katanas and replicas of the giant Mako cannon that towers over the city. This is perhaps the starkest and most offensive contrast to Lower Junon. Shinra beat them in the war. Now, they've turned their city into a temple to war. So much of the aesthetic that permeates Upper Junon has to do with golds and scarlets, with soldier iconography that the people treat as cutesy paraphernalia. It's kind of darkly hilarious. This militarism only gets cranked up thanks to the inauguration parade held there for Rufus Shinra. A cool consequence of this is that the city also does a remarkable job of humanizing Shinra's soldiers. Like, there's a trooper who loves cats. A lot of them chat about their private lives, about having wives and husbands and kids. It makes them feel like real people beneath those helmets. Wait, what am I doing? I work for Avalanche. Ha! Take that, Shinra. This inauguration will be standing room only. The Shinra middle manager shows up again here, and through Rebirth, we see him go through an arc from the stiff company man he was last game into... well...
Look, honey, it's me! Daddy's on television!
Sir, please!
I miss you very, very much, but I promise I'll be home real soon! Oh, and I got to see the cannon! And it was so big, way bigger than in your picture books! I only wish you and Mommy were here to see it with me. So you know what? Next family vacation, we'll all come here together!
Are we still live?
Later, we'll follow him into vacation mode in Costa del Sol, where he's sent on an assignment but ultimately disappointed by the work. That arc continues into the Gold Saucer, until his story unceremoniously ends with a summons back to the office. But he's been forever changed by his adventures out here. The original game ended with him slowly getting sidelined by the company he toiled so hard for. It was a downer ending, but a real one, all things considered. The re-trilogy seems to be setting up something more lighthearted and optimistic for him. Rebirth, independently at least, does. Now, he says, he's excited to return to work not for the work itself, but to middle manage and protect his employees. In that spirit, this is my 9th takeaway. Rebirth is a massive game, but it did have an extremely efficient development cycle, and a big part of that comes down to employee retention. The people who worked on the last game worked on this one, and that kind of connectivity helps with everything. I think it's also a big part of why the world coheres so well. Not just in this title, but with its predecessor. At least the middle manager will always be more of a serious worker than this Junon suit.
Hey, have you been to the company bar yet? They've got some quality stuff, and we get an employee discount.
I'll have to check it out, but is it just me, or are you always drinking?
I mean, I wouldn't say always. I just take advantage of it when I can, you know?
But you never take advantage on the clock, right?
Oh, no, of course not. I'll never do that.
Does that look like the face of a man who would lie? Yes, let's not be cutesy here. It does. If we take his advice and scope out Junon's bars, we'll see some other fun vignettes too. Thankfully, the best one falls on the critical path, so you've probably seen it. Yes, there's a bald bar in Upper Junon, and I love the NPC interactions in it just so dang much. This whole sequence is a contender for the funniest scene in an already funny game. I especially love this little headbutt ritual.
Smooth heads, shining bright.
Why do you think the new president isn't going for the bald look?
Dunno, but if he did, he could spend less time preening himself and more time doing his job.
Upper Junon's costumes also contrast Lower Junon's. People are dressed in brighter colors, and ascots, and they wear jewelry like earrings and necklaces. and fancy wristwatches. I also appreciate this one citizen who looks up at the window displays of upcoming collections and notes that the local fashion companies...
So, this is the latest in Junon fashion, is it? Well, alright then. Let's see what you got for me. They have a thing for bright colors. But what's this? Elements of military design subtly worked in, catering to the people's tastes in the lead up to the inauguration. Not bad. Not bad at all.
Are playing up military aesthetics to tie into timely trends. With the city being as segregated as it is, this is a good place for our 10th pin. This is a big one. There are a few different pools of generic NPCs. Square uses muted, dull colors and bits of dirt on clothes for impoverished communities, like you'll see in Nibelheim or Lower Junon, and bright, vivid colors, greens and blues and pinks with more trendy designs for the more well-off ones, as seen in Kalm or Upper Junon. Some NPC models fall in between the categories, like this one in the blue sleeveless, or this lady with the grey scarf, essentially forming a quote-unquote middle class on the spectrum. This feels particularly interesting as we start packing our bags to voyage to Costa del Sol, where we start seeing more vacation clothes and trendy designs. Square has transformed what was once a short and sweet break between the action into a bustling hotspot and paradise. Costa del Sol is a full-on party, and it all starts with the cruise ship you ride to it. These people are all packed for vacation, sunglasses clipped to their shirts. On the deck, you can run up to join an exercising session where each exercise is named after a different FF monster, and Cloud has a different animation for each pose, depending on when you join them.
Next, we'll be moving into Terror of the Deep, plunging down into the sea. Now, shift into Spearhawk form and glide along the sea breeze.
There are some fun sub-stories in the cabins below too. You can overhear a journalist who's thrilled she got to be in Junon during the attempt on Rufus's life.
We got the scoop on the new president skirting death at his own inauguration! This is gonna make our careers!
That rumor about Wu-Tai's ninjas being involved, you think it holds any water?
And she considers a follow-up investigation in Wu-Tai, except...
Maybe I ought to go undercover in Wu-Tai to root out the truth. The pen is mightier than the ninja, and I'm gonna prove it. And while I'm at it, I can pick up some Dachau beans as tasty souvenirs.
She also wants to do tourist things there? You can also overhear one dude talking about surviving the plate collapse from the previous game, and...
When the plate fell and I got hurt, I was pretty depressed. But then I got this vacation, so I guess it turned out pretty good in the end.
What? What do you mean pretty good in the end? You can find a whole lot of vacationers lounging in the hammocks. Or reading books like The Legend of Shinra. One of the main missions on the ship is a Queen's Blood tournament, that card game I mentioned earlier. And if you rise through the ranks, NPCs start cheering on you, and the host even puts a little Cloud sticker on his cheek. Here's a fun takeaway. If you watch the QB players closely, you'll notice that they actually hold different cards in their hands. It's not just the same cards across all players. In fact, it's a surprisingly wide range. I love Queen's Blood, and thought this was such a nice detail. Regina, the Queen's Blood champion, has a design I want to highlight too. Her outfit has a red and black colorway and plaid patterning, reminiscent of Sora's look in Kingdom Hearts 3. Her heart-shaped earrings could be read as an allusion to KH also. Interpretations may vary. On one hand, this could just be a recent Nomura design fad. On the other, KH3 featured several chessboard motifs, and the checkered pattern went hand in hand with that. Despite being a card game, Queen's Blood uses similar imagery for its board, so maybe that chessboard influence drove Regina's design too. Either way, I really enjoyed her character and her rivalry with Cloud. On the topic of Queen's Blood and chess, I'll also jump ahead for a second to the Gold Saucer, where the original featured this fun little scene of two ghosts playing chess. In Rebirth, that's replaced with Queen's Blood, and actually becomes story relevant. Fun stuff. I'm dying for a game. My favorite thing about Costa del Sol is that it's the one town you get to explore with a physical camera for one of the side quests. So I got all my closest looks at the NPCs here. Here's an exhibition of the vacation looks on display. You'll see Hawaiian shirts, Hawaiian shorts, tattoos, sundresses with floral patterns on them, carved amulets, and of course the local staff's uniforms. One detail I like here is that the workers for the resorts have the resort names printed on their shirts, so you can tell which hotels they work for. The tour guides have these beautifully textured green and yellow and white dresses, and sometimes flowers in their hair. With the camera, you can also zoom in on a lot of fun vignettes throughout the level. There's a guy with a giant clock, where all of the numbers use the font for Final Fantasy logos. There's this painter and his muse.
I paint what I see and I sell what I paint. So I travel in search of inspiration.
Here's them at the start of the game.
Does this inspire you?
Hardly. A pose like that lacks nuance. Art without subtlety is distasteful.
And here's them when you revisit later.
I'll need to figure out my next destination soon.
I'm sure we'll have a lovely time wherever we go.
Who said that you could come along?
No one, but it couldn't hurt to take a muse along for the ride to inspire you.
There's this delivery guy with the giant backpack as well, who has a fun running gag associated with him.
Where's my next drop-off spot? 2 pizzas, down on the beach. Copy that. Oh, and double-check the order next time, will ya? Last guy wanted pepperoni but got pepperoncino instead.
You can see him in a second spot if you're on graphics mode.
Okay, 2 plates of spaghetti. Coming right up. And be careful. We gave some guy a bowl of spaghettoni and he was not happy. Folks are picky about their pasta.
On the topic of food, if you'll pardon me donning my Final Fantasy XV Enjoyer hat again for a second, that was a game with a very similar design philosophy as far as leisure and distractions went. Look closely at the food in Rebirth, and you'll see a variety of appealing dishes, each befitting their locales, like brunch and bakery goods in Kalm, or fish dishes on the cruise ship, or greasy burgers and tacos and roasts and fruits in Costa del Sol. That said, the food does look low polygon and a little plastic. Can we take a second to appreciate how good food looked in FF15 a decade ago? Or the fact that NPCs convincingly ate meals? Let's take takeaway 12 to go. The emphasis on food and culinary tourism in FF15 made sense. Food was a huge part of EOS's culture, and cooking for someone or sharing meals was a way of expressing love in that world. Folks at the seaside resort ate lobster and seafood. At the old market district, they had their pick of cuisines. At random diners, they had omelets and fries. And at random rest stops, they ate sandwiches. For the most part, meals looked pretty good, and inspired new recipes for the party's resident chef. Food doesn't hold quite as much narrative or cultural value in FF7, so it makes sense for it to look relatively, I'm so sorry, undercooked. As assets, I mean. Different games emphasize different details, and that's okay. In fact, it tells us something about each game. You know what isn't undercooked though? The world building in this level. Let's work off those calories at the local gym, where you can see all manner of exercises. And also overhear some really weird barks.
My body's a temple, my muscles religion.
The sweat off my brow is proof of my conviction. Greet every day with a bunny hop.
Squat for the pain and tears that never stop.
The true battle lies within the self. I will become stronger. I will rise above.
Bring on the pain!
I really like the writing for the ambient dialogue in Costa del Sol in general. The entire resort just blooms to life around every corner. There's a random guy on a street who, after the boss fight on the beach, will recognize you as having been there.
Wait a sec. Weren't you part of that trouble on the beach yesterday?
The town also features just some of the most bizarre writing and line reads. I've covered the materia pops already, but listen to this menu of FF-themed tongue twisters at a local food truck.
Tacos del Sol, bomb bowls, tonberry spritzers, Moogle melts, Sahagin Patza, marsh stew, chocoboba, Marlboro malts, flan frappes, we've got it all!
Or this absurd exchange between two shoppers at the weapons store.
Do they have a cute one that'll go with my swimsuit?
Coconuts make great weapons and shields. Talk about versatile.
What are you talking about? Here's one between two swimmers.
What are you even singing?
And another between two lifeguards at the beach.
My whole body's burning up. I can feel the sun calling me, saying, catch a wave and ride it all the way to the sky.
Think it's just saying, you've got heat stroke.
Nah, that wave's gonna carry me to the heavens.
You know, these days, the waves mostly carry garbage.
Guess I'm just gonna have to go see for myself.
No. Get back to work.
This is the series that gave us such NPC gems as You Spoony Bard, This Guy Are Sick, and I Want to Be a Blitzball When I Grow Up. But now, with better localization, it's the voice actors who ham it up and bring the laughs. Additional voices credits? I see you. And boy do I hear you. The beach itself is a lovely spot as well, where families will just hang out. If you recall the kids playing soccer in Costa del Sol back in the original, there's a new version of that here.
I'm going straight for the goal! You got this! Hey, pass it to me!
There's a dude making a sandcastle with just the utmost passion possible for a sandcastle.
Others may scoff at me building with sand, but it's as valid a medium as any other. And as an artist, I will settle only for perfection.
There are surfers, and swimmers, and friends even teaching each other to swim. It's also worth noting that Costa del Sol is the turning point for the Shinra middle manager. Initially, he's upset at the sight of the party showing up, since he's here on assignment. But ultimately, his assignment goes wrong, and he snaps at Shinra for the first time, setting him up for the arc he'll eventually complete at the Gold Saucer.
Why do I even bother? I'm finished. No. The company can't fire me if I fire myself first. You hear that? I quit! Hey, Rufus! Take your Mako and shove it up your ass! Screw you, Shinra! Screw you!
In fact, the only joy he finds here is in that little photography side quest with Tifa and Aerith. I didn't mind seeing the manager or Kyrie or Johnny in Rebirth, but one of my critiques of Costa del Sol is that I didn't feel so many of the cameos from Remake were necessary. I think figures like Madame M and Andrea and Mireille gave Midgar a lot of character, and that they felt particularly off Midgar. Did we need to see everyone hop away from the city concurrently with Cloud and his friends? For me anyway, it robbed Midgar a bit of its distinctness. I would have liked some time away from some of these characters so the eventual return to Midgar in the next entry could feel like a full homecoming. But maybe this is the wrong time to overthink. I'm on vacation. What's the parlance? Hang loose. Costa del Sol is also a prime location for Takeaway 13. Love is in the air in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. As mentioned earlier, there's no shortage of NPC love stories in this game, but some of the most affecting ones take place here and in the Gold Saucer. After all, that's where they all come to holiday together. Here, you can see another couple whose story progresses throughout the game. From courting...
Well, how would you feel if you received a bouquet like this?
Me? I'd be flattered.
Good, because it's for you, mi amor.
To hesitation...
How about that date?
I mean, my shift isn't over for a while.
Okay, but what about after you're done for the day?
to trying to find a date spot,
Where's the best place for a romantic dinner?
to finally being an established pair in the last chapter.
Honey, did you forget to water the flowers?
Of course not. I was just waiting till after we ate.
If they wait, they wilt. Now hurry up and give them their supper or you won't get yours. Got it?
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
You've also got a couple bickering about whether to follow an itinerary or just chill out while on vacation.
I made us a schedule for our stay. You promised to review it by the time we arrive?
Baby, we're on vacation. What do we need a schedule for?
I'm spending my entire bonus on this trip. I'm not wasting a second.
Isn't that the point of a vacation? To sit around and do nothing?
A couple taking photos on the beach.
Okay, say cheese!
This okay?
And my personal favorite. You know the quest where Tifa has to fill in for a pianist who had to drop out of a concert here? Hours later, you can find that pianist in Cosmo Canyon, talking to his partner about how he had to miss his show.
So the concert at the Royal Coast, think they pulled it off? I mean, you were their star pianist before we...
I told you the person I got to sub for me would manage, didn't I? More importantly, we need to commit to a house. Now, I thought the property we saw the other day was to die for.
It was, but don't you think it might be a little big for the two of us?
Well, it does need to have room for my piano. And who knows? Our family might end up growing someday. There's more than one way to nurture life, after all. Isn't that what we learned from our time here in Cosmo Canyon?
This is a new start for them, a necessary new start in a new place. It's a bit deeper than some of the other vignettes we've looked at. More on Cosmo Canyon later. Here's a brief look at the vacationing couples at the Gold Saucer too, especially those in line for the Sky Wheel. Some of them are surprisingly heavy on public displays of affection. But you know what I love? The most unabashed, devil-may-care PDA might be between this older couple, showing the young uns how it's done. It's clear they've been familiar for a long time. That's how you truly hang loose. Speaking of love stories, here's a fun one. On occasion, you can randomly see proposals at the Gold Saucer.
Sweetheart, would you be mine forever?
Welcome to the Gold Saucer.
A long and happy marriage to you both. Let's have a round of applause for the soon-to-be newlyweds.
The Gold Saucer is a neon wonderland of lasers, light shows, and libations, delights, dance, and drinks, in the middle of the desert. In this way, it tastes like a strange cocktail of the Las Vegas Strip and Disneyland. Some of it is clearly meant to be ironic and some of it is parodic, but let's be real. If Square-Enix had a theme park, this is basically exactly what it would be. Like in the original game, you're greeted by Final Fantasy mascots almost upon arrival, including a chocobo,
Welcome to the Gold Saucer. Line up quickly if you want your photo taken.
a cactuar who inspires visitors to make the iconic cactuar pose,
Think you can strike a pose like me? Give it a try. Keep on smiling, y'all.
and a tonberry making stabby motions with a shiny balloon.
Tonberries are kind of scary, if you ask me.
I love the balloons here in general and how they're textured. The shiny reflective surface and wrinkles imply these are mylar balloons instead of the typical latex, which, fun fact, means they're easier to shape and personalize. They also last longer, but they're not biodegradable. Like in Disneyland, occasionally you can run into these cast members all together, doing a little performance too. Have a look.
Join our very friendly Tonberries. All together now. Ready? Do the chef knife pose. Let's spread our wings along with our Choco buddies here. All together now. Do the quick whip pose.
Get your elbows ready, folks! And just like our prickly pals, all together now, do the cactuar pose!
What I love even more is that Square doesn't shy away from showing us a bit of the magic backstage. At one point, you have to chase a character into the back rooms where you can see a cast member with their chocobo mask off.
Late again? I'm in for it now. Wait, he wouldn't fire me, would he? A pay cut, sure, but...
And you can see the ride operators on their consoles. There isn't much to say about the tourists here since they don't really have unique designs. They might carry merch, but they don't typically wear merch, which could have been cool. Still, we can see a lot of them having a good time and taking photos at least. They're taking selfies, and hanging out at the arcade, and breaking out into flash mobs around the park. Chocobo Square has a petting zoo situation of sorts where kids get to feed chocobos.
Now hold your hand out near their beak. Remember, if we're afraid of them, they'll be afraid of us.
Near Battle Square, they're flexing their muscles to show off to their friends. Look at this guy.
Whoa! You're friggin' jacked today!
Those muscles are insane! You're cut like a behemoth!
Or this guy, who's unstrapped his overalls for maximum flex mileage and clout. Notice that many of them are wearing camo pants or patterned tights too. They'll talk about the experience of spectating Battle Square's fights.
I bought some protein powder to drop off backstage. I brought binoculars since I'm in the nosebleeds. I'll be able to see the beads of sweat on their skin.
You might also notice these chocobo balloons. It's not just the balloon that's chocobo shaped, but the end of the string too. This is the kind of small flourish I live for. You know how cactuars have the 10,000 needles attack? If you zoom in on the cactuar ice cream, you'll see the box reads 10,000 flavors. For the behemoth's share of these fun details, we turn our attention to the cast members, who are unique to the Gold Saucer and wear different uniforms fitted to their park biomes. Standard employees wear a little badge that reads Gold Saucer. The ushers at Theater Square have this little gold brooch of Kate Sid's Moogle. Wonderman Square has a rainbow logo with this flock of Moogles on the ceiling. The cast members there wear a pin of that logo, as well as a fanny pack with a little cactuar on it. Chocobo Squares are dressed as cowboys and wear pins of Gizal greens. Speed Square's cast wears this little galaxy pin. Altogether, these remind me of the collector pin craze that permeates certain theme park cultures. The vendors at Battle Square wear that classic black and red and flex their muscles to show off. The concession stand workers sell chocobo bean popcorn that actually looks chocobo shaped. Employees aggressively market their merch, which are based on classic FF monsters.
We've got chocobos, cactuars, and tomberries too, and also Kate Sid.
That's how I describe my party too. Cloud and friends, and also Cape Sip. There's a chocobo jockey with this slick racing uniform, stripes on sleeves and all. And of course, my favorite. The hosts at the Haunted Mansion Hotel wear this white face paint with thick eyeliner and a spiffy emerald suit. Approach the shopkeeper here on your first visit and she'll have this to say.
Just so you know, I was bitten by a zombie a few days ago. If you want to exchange your points, you'd better hurry before I turn. Come back soon, because I don't think I have that much time left.
And when you come back later, that bite has actually transformed her. It's such a fun moment, the kind of surprise you always want to catch in theme parks. Environment Director Takako Miyake talks about the process of modernizing the Gold Saucer, how the original was envisioned as a cutting-edge park for 1997, and so this remake had to feel cutting-edge today. There are full light shows dedicated to painting stamp with a light gun. Or the story of Kid G and the cactuars around Corel Desert. Environmentally, the Vegas Strip comparisons feel most pronounced given the saucer's impact on the surrounding desert. But in dialogue and presentation, the Disneyland vibes are off the roof. The employees are called cast members. Superfans frequent the park and know its layout as well as the cast members do. Sound design is similar to a Disney or Universal Studios parks too. The composers deliberately mix the music so that it always feels like it's coming at you from above, creating a boxed-in feel. Speed Square is extremely reminiscent of Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, or the Millennium Falcon ride, complete with a cheesy hologram speech in the waiting room.
Our mission today is a vital one, and we will need your wholehearted support to defeat the enemy! The Gilgamesh army is amassing a fleet of star cruisers on the dark side of Moon 7.
A fun little detail here is the lore behind this Space Ranger and the Gilgamesh army. Apparently, they're rebels who spun out of a corrupt military force.
Everyone knows the Space Rangers began as part of the Gilgamesh army, but they broke away to fight back against the corrupt leadership. So the army...
Welcome, cadets, to Space Ranger HQ!
Shinra commodifying a story like this is clearly ironic, but it's also very reminiscent of how many megacorporations make money off stories about rebellions against empires and megacorporations. It's just a really great touch, a little tongue-in-cheek and self-aware besides. Takeaway 15. The Gold Saucer is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's greatest self-contradiction. In some ways, the game understands this. In others, it's woefully oblivious, threatening to buckle under the weight of its own ambition. See, earlier in the video I mentioned that Rebirth feels overwhelmingly alive. That's sometimes a buzzword in games crit, so let's unpack. The game is so filled to the brim with interesting ambient dialogue that none of it really fades into the background. Instead, it talks over itself, constantly.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I found this to be really overstimulating in the earlier settlements, especially smaller ones like Nibelheim. That cacophony makes more sense and is more expected in the Gold Saucer. But, to quote an environmental crit piece by Autumn Wright titled, "It's not just the wildfires," Rebirth is the Gold Saucer, a product sold by an industry built on the exploitation of developers, factory workers, and miners alike. Consoles made of conflict minerals consuming more and more power to render Cloud Strife's pores. But even Barrett enjoys himself. Future is not promised to no one, he tells Cloud. Live it up while you can. End quote. It's a shiny, beautifully fleshed out, and immersive product to be sure, but it is also a big budget remake of a game from 1997 about the environment and about the exploitation of labor. It is louder, but not always clearer. It's a messy, complicated thing. As a fan of maximalist storytelling, I adore the game's peaks. As a writer and critic, I sometimes stare for hours into its valleys. Rebirth is a blockbuster that wants to do everything and say everything, and that extravagance is often to its detriment. We move briskly from set piece to set piece, distraction to distraction. We see, also, the different natures and price points of these distractions for the NPCs. Wright continues, and as the architectural hierarchy in Midgar's plates was familiar to the majority of people actually playing Final Fantasy VII in 1997 and Rebirth in 2024, the hierarchy of these disparities is another middle-class familiarity. Vacations. End quote. These images of middle-class vacationing stuck with me a lot running through Costa del Sol, the Gold Saucer, and later Cosmo Canyon. Images of people really thinking through their time and money, like these parents talking about kids and their video games.
We gotta go to Wonderment Square next! You promised! Finally managed to get them out of Wonderment Square. Kids and their video games, am I right?
Or these independent playwrights who reflect on what the plays here might teach them about their own planned productions, even as they work with less and a far smaller budget.
But hey, at least we know your scripts are good. Too bad our stage is too small for them. But the real problem is us. We can't do your characters justice. We just don't have the acting chops.
No, the fault lies with me. As the director, I'm the one who needs to bring it all together.
Oh, at least seeing the best of the best in action has helped us learn what we need to improve.
Or these tourists reacting to the news of impending war with Wutai.
Should we really be goofing around at a time like this?
If this place gets shut down because of Wutai, there's gonna be hell to pay.
Showing just how hilariously messed up their senses of priority are. Or these visitors speculating about how the Gold Saucer will expand next. The game makes clear that it is a constantly growing project, so visitors are incentivized to visit multiple times, however expensive it might get.
4 years ago, the park underwent extensive renovations and was outfitted with state-of-the-art technology. Even today, the Gold Saucer continues to expand, with new attractions currently in the works.
Apparently, they're working on setting up a whole new game here. Rumors say it's a snow. Actually, I'll leave it a surprise.
Come on, don't leave me hanging.
You'll see once it's done. We'll come back and play it together.
Right. I wonder what the surprise new game could possibly be. It's a fun bit of foreshadowing, I guess, all jokes aside. But again, it's also a bit of a parallel to how we keep revisiting FF7 through its many expansions, however expensive it might get. The Saucer feels like a critique of, and monument to, fandom culture all at once.
Kids and their video games, am I right?
The arcade here consists of several quality recreations of minigames from the original FF7. 3D Brawler is back and feels like a fun throwback to that classic low-poly aesthetic, and we see NPCs in that style in the Fort Condor board game too.
Everywhere you look, the attention to detail is crazy.
Hey, who are these losers? I love that you can run into your party members enjoying the park as you run around too. Kate Sith works here before he joins the team, so he'll pop up a lot. Fun fact. In the cutscenes we see Reeve, who controls him from Shinra HQ, actually has the same assistant he had in Remake. She was a generic NPC there, but is now a unique one in Rebirth. You can spot Aerith actually writing for the big song she'll perform later. Back at Theater Square, you can find Barrett standing in front of his late friend Jesse's portrait. She was a performer here before she joined Avalanche in Midgar. He'll look at Cloud when he comes close, but otherwise, his eyeline fixes on the portrait. Even as Rebirth jingles its many keys and accelerates to breakneck speeds, I often want it to just stay in a moment and let that moment breathe. Part of what I wanted to get out of making this video were those pauses, chances to slow down and reflect on the quieter, more human scenes around its world. So let's take a step back from the saucer and head down to North Corel, Barrett's hometown.
Hey Barrett, welcome home!
I considered making Corel its own chapter, but the two are interconnected in the same way Midgar's two halves, or Junon's two halves, are. Corel sits in the shadow of the Gold Saucer and is a longtime victim of Shinra's actions in the area. In a flashback, we can actually see how it looked in the past, and how full of hope its people used to be.
This place is gonna thrive thanks to you. Everything's gotten so much easier thanks to that reactor. Thanks for looking out, Barrett.
How's the reactor looking?
Since we live it in Barrett's perspective, we also get something similar to the Nibelheim flashback. Barrett remembers everyone being really grateful and happy to see him. Again, it's a great example of NPCs reflecting character interiority. All of this praise is a complicated affair for Barrett though, since he blames himself for what became of his home. In present day and in reality, it is a starkly different place. The people resent Barrett and sit around drowning their sorrows, or reminiscing about the railways that ran through here.
Chugga chugga choo choo, chugga chugga choo choo, o'er the hills we go, like that.
Here's a quick look at the people around town. Note the discoloration on their clothes. But that doesn't mean the locals are devoid of joy or hope. There's a local doctor here who's helped countless people bounce back. His name's Doc Sheeran, and he's also mentioned in Traces of Two Pasts, as a medic who helped Tifa after the Nibelheim incident. The game directly follows the book here. Corel is also where we see the highest density of people with disabilities. We also see some scenes of community organizing, as local chefs host soup kitchens and distribute this curry around for folks to enjoy. Have a look.
we have to pack up these Dio cookies.
Okay, I'll help put on the Dio stickers.
Up by the cable car station to the saucer, we can see commuters who live here and work up there. For these cast members, it's an exhausting job.
Wearing that costume all day gets kinda old.
But also a dream job, since they get to entertain people.
I don't work at the Gold Saucer, Kupo.
It just doesn't pay very well, as we can glean here. In fact, those bulky costumes even hurt their posture. For their families, it's tough, because cast members rarely get to spend time at home.
Daddy's not back yet. Is he, doing overtime again?
I'm sure he is. You know how much everyone up there loves Daddy's Moogle costume. He'll be back any minute.
Still, we see a pretty diverse array of workers, some of who still enjoy the work.
But this is my dream job. I'd never forgive myself if I lost it just because I wanted a break.
And some who are burning out.
I get that, but we work our asses off for weeks on end, entertaining people who can actually afford to take a vacation. And we're left with what? A crummy paycheck and aching feet?
Other locals without the experience dream of getting out of Corel someday. Take this guy with the baseball bat, who daydreams about leaving like his old friends did.
Bob made it big as a performer in the Gold Saucer. And Bruce has his ice cream shop in Costa del Sol. I'll make it out too. One of these days, I will.
The people here are also still grieving the fallout of the reactor explosion some years ago. One woman just has her husband's old rifle to remember him by.
Been 4 years, and not a day goes by I don't think of my husband. His old gun's the only thing I've got left to remember him by.
It's a weird memento, but that's how these things work out sometimes.
Makes me feel safe, like he's still here with me.
Here's Takeaway 16, and this one's got to do with firearms. You'll notice that guards posted around the town entrances typically carry advanced submachine guns. Outside of towns and in the wilderness, though, folks carry these older hunting rifles. Down in Corel Prison, which sits even lower than North Corel and is populated by a ragtag commune of outlaws, the people carry these paint-splattered shotguns. Or these flamethrowers.
All hail Solemn Gus, King of Corel Prison! Show respect or get wrecked!
Corel Prison, or the Dust Bowl as the locals call it, is an interesting place. Take it from this dude.
Huh? Shit! My wallet's gone! Not like it had anything in it anyway.
There's just so much in those two lines. It tells you almost everything you need to know about the place.
Take a picture, pal. It'll last longer.
Oh, I mean, sure, yeah, that's what I do. Most NPC designs here are a lot more stylized than the Bobs and Bruces we've seen so far. It is always a little weird that Final Fantasy heroes look so stylistically distinct and that NPCs don't, but that mostly falls away here and in Gongaga later. These prisoners have this punk Mad Max-esque aesthetic. There's paint splatter on their pants. And they wear cheap spray-painted armor pads and dog tags. They wear leather vests and spiked pauldrons, and they style their hair in non-traditional ways. And dye it in all kinds of different colors. Take a look. They might wrap their legs in bandages, or wear fingerless gloves too. There's a very hard-edged, scrappy aesthetic to it all. Some of them walk around inebriated. The guards carry nail bats and bandaged-up guns. They also repurpose the Gold Saucer's trash for their own recreation. Like, look at the local band and the branding on their instruments. They're dressed like the Ghost Square employees and call themselves the Hotel Men. Great name for a band. Their drums are from Ghost Square directly. We can see from this little brooch that this golden statue man is wearing a uniform from up there too. I love how much use they get out of just recycling scrap metal and trash. Look at this metal scarecrow art installation thingy they put up at the entrance. It's amazing. Many of them also tinker with motorcycles for fun. And you can see them revving their engines and doing little rounds.
Fascinating. Almost makes you wonder which came first, the biker or the bike.
What? Snaps, I love you, but that doesn't make any sense. They also hold these black market auctions where they sell monsters for combat, in addition to whatever else they procure in the wasteland.
And for the next lot, we have this lovely piece. I'm looking for 1,000 gills.
1,300! 3K here!
4,500!
And we learn later from Leslie, remember that guy from Remake, that Don Corneo was a frequent customer here.
12,000! Ain't no one going higher!
25K!
In the indoors areas, you can also catch them spectating the chocobo races being broadcast from the saucer. I really like how much graffiti there is dispersed throughout the area, including one that reads, "Insert pseudo-intellectual message here." You can see one of the artists in front of a splattered wall too, wondering what she might paint next.
Maybe a chocobo? Or a moogle? Though I could go for a cactuar.
I came back to this spot later and unfortunately she didn't add anything. Look, sometimes these are busts.
Folks down here in the Dust Bowl make for excellent subjects, let me tell you. Everyone here is so raw and authentic.
Finally, you can see loan sharks, talking about circling their debtors for dues.
Everyone pay their dues in full for the month.
We're gonna do some rounds soon. Remind folks who've fallen behind.
There's a cool bit of interconnectivity between this and North Corel. In North Corel, you might notice some of the prison folks trying to scam people out of their money through investment fraud.
You can invest in even more and start raking in the guild.
Here, watch.
This money will give my kids a chance.
Easy as pie, right?
You took everything from me!
Need a little something to get started. I can help you out with a small loan.
So, how's the investment squeeze coming?
Just like you said it would. We already got them all rounded up in the truck. They ain't going nowhere.
Oh, and if you're wondering what that background hullabaloo is, it's a bar fight.
I ain't done yet. I want a rematch.
Two drunks are duking it out at the bar. Anyway, when I passed through here the first time, I supposed this was set up for a future side quest. But no, the people of North Corel sort it out themselves. The storyline mainly just progresses in the background. Once you get past a certain point, they'll tie up the scammers themselves, go back inside the bar, and those drunks will have stopped fighting each other, and are now working together to beat up the scammers.
Look down on us, will ya? Get him! What are you, chicken?
They've got one cactuar splayed on the floor. It's a cool arc, meant to symbolize North Corel moving forward, and taking charge of its own future, slowly but surely. Let's head back out. Anyway, it's been a long day. Maybe we should take a short rest before our next stop. Sweet dreams, Cloud. Where should we go next, you think?
Me? Gongaga.
In its open world sections, Rebirth takes a lot of inspiration from contemporaries like Ghost of Tsushima and the Horizon games. You can follow animals to hidden and sacred locations, you reconstruct narrative through archaeological study, etc. It doesn't really take that same inspiration with NPC design though. There's a Nordic game talk where Horizon's Living World lead Espen Sohn mentions they like to use long, arduous, multi-step animation loops so that NPCs don't look like they're doing the same thing all the time. Every time you pass through a settlement, there is an illusion of change, so there's very little monotony to the NPCs of, say, Forbidden West. You've seen plenty of evidence by this point that animation loops in Rebirth are shorter. Much shorter. Its remedy to this is long dialogue instead, a more narratively direct, on-the-nose approach. At worst, this dialogue can be bloated or monotonous. At its best, though, it is layered and interconnected. Take the chocobo that plays Queen's Blood in Gongaga. It's a silly and charming gimmick. But there's a lot riding on that gimmick for the people here because he could be a draw for tourists.
He'll be up against a dog that plays Queen's Blood, and we have to make sure he wins to help drive up tourism here.
You can actually play the dog in Corel. The stakes for the dog are equally compelling.
Rolf is actually scheduled to make his television debut. They're doing a special on animals who can play Queen's Blood. And once we get famous, we can finally kiss this town goodbye.
In these moments, the game is able to comment on the various wealth disparities around its world and how the people respond to them. With games, with gimmicks, sometimes with grief. Gongaga is where NPCs are the most in harmony with nature around them, and this comes through in the regional vignettes. The people live in small dome-shaped huts, and the town is connected via rickety rope bridges over a gushing river. For the most part, it's a peaceful place, nice for retirement if this elderly pair is to be believed.
Goodness me, how many years has it been since we settled down here?
You expect me to remember? It's been ages, and an honest-to-God roller coaster of a time. I wouldn't have had it any other way.
And the ride's far from over, I know that much. You and I, we're gonna be kicking for a long while yet.
You can see farmers in sandals or barefoot even, tilling the land in overalls and tank tops. You can also see them feeding chickens and livestock. Zooming in, notice the particle effects sifting out of their hands. We can see a translucent cloud of powder and individual bird seeds spreading out from it. Have a look at them operating the yard hydrants too. It's a more involved animation than in many other parts of the game. You can see the splashback from the water hitting the bucket. If we zoom in on NPCs washing their hands in the water buckets, we can see actual black dirt particles washing off of their hands. It's such a cool touch. Gongaga is also one of the few places I encountered an animation on the longer side, with shared looks and unspoken gestures between two characters. There's a father and son chopping wood. It's nondescript, but it stood out to me for how nondescript and casually well animated it was. There's a woman who does the video game thing of lifting a box, carrying it across town, and putting it down, lifting it, and then carrying it back. Again, the only reason this even caught my eye was because I'd seen so little of characters actually interacting with objects and the environment around them by this point. They'll also walk their dogs, or admire the plant life. For me, takeaway 17 is this. These longer, more environmental animations all lend to the feeling that Gongaga's villagers really are more in tune with their surroundings, and not so egocentric.
Yeah, then we can spread the wealth around.
Better make sure it's spread evenly, though, or we'll never hear the end of it.
I want to highlight 3 side quests here. One follows a blacksmith named Izo, who is mentioned back in Corel as a bit of a nuisance.
Could make any kind of tool you'd want. Fix up just about anything. But man, was he a pain to work with.
Ain't that the truth? Always yelling his head off about this or that.
Now he's moved out to Gongaga. Once you help him out with forging his masterwork, a new weapon for Barrett, he becomes quite happier, and the people of Gongaga have a very different attitude towards him.
Heard through the grapevine that Izo's singing a different tune now. Instead of belting out profanity, the guy is literally whistling while he works. Kinda makes you wonder what this ultimate weapon actually is. And maybe I should pay him a visit sometime.
Next, we see another photography quest, this time focused around helping a children's book author snap photos of Nanaki. These photos inspire her to draw a little mock-up, which you can watch her do a full presentation on if you stand around. Last but not least, I'm not a big fan of the "Oh, please help me find my chickens" trope in games. It is overplayed. You probably aren't either. But Gongaga features potentially the funniest one I've seen, ending with a grim reminder of what fate actually awaits those chickens when you save them.
Did your tummy just rumble? Stay for dinner. I'm always happy to treat my favorite helpers.
There's an ambient conversation along the same lines just nearby, where things get a bit existential.
Make sure to never ever miss a feeding. You want them nice and fat. That way their meat will be all the more delicious.
Wait, what? We're gonna eat them?
I know it may seem sad, but they're just returning to the planet to be born again, like all life.
Whoa! But what if they used to be people?
Here's one more interaction that has to do with the critical path rather than the side quests. The first time you roll up, two women chatter about an annoying plane that whirs around the area.
Hey, you ever see that old rattle-trap of a plane in action? Can't believe it's actually capable of performing stunts. The vapor trails it leaves behind are pretty enough, but I'm dreading the day it comes crashing down in the middle of town.
Once you recruit Sid Highwind and get the tiny Bronco for yourselves, they'll start to miss the old thing.
Whatever happened to that rickety old plane? Used to be a fixture in the skies above Gongaga. If I'm being honest, I kinda miss it.
I don't know whose idea it was to make Gongaga a mushroom capital of the world, but that is what square-enix did, so we are going with it.
This must be one of Gongaga's famous mushrooms. Only ever seen them in preserves.
Our little village's claim to fame is the delicious Gongaga mushroom.
There are multiple mushroom stalls and foragers around the village, and they certainly sound like people from a mushroom capital.
Give them the proper love and care, and they'll love you right back.
Be the most delicious mushrooms you can be.
Huh. He seems like a fun guy.
Good to see you again. Since you're here, mind if I snap a pic of a fun guy with some fungi?
No comment. You know, even the youth here has a concerning appetite.
They're so good, I can't stop. You probably ought to stop. Remember what happened last time you ate this many? Mom freaked.
Whatever. It's totally worth it.
At the local tavern, folks share drinks over these plated mushroom dishes too. While in Gongaga, the party stays with a friend named Cisne. She used to live in Midgar. There's a Midgar fashion magazine and a mushroom mascot plush in her bedroom. Representations of both her lives. Fun stuff. You might recognize her as Zack Fair's friend from Crisis Core. Gongaga was his hometown, so you actually end up meeting a lot of characters with past associations with him. His parents, old friends, etc. Cisne is the most prominent of them, and there are quite a few fun details in her house. For one thing, she's an awful cook, since she grew up spoiled by company meals from Shinra. At the onset of her questline, you'll notice her pot isn't just burning. There's also spillover onto her stove burners. Stray bits of vegetables lay scattered around. Panning around, we can also see the shurikens she used to wield back in Crisis Core. And she has a sniper rifle like the one Zack scrounged up during one of their last goodbyes. Maybe she put those there. Who knows? In later quests, she'll equip those shurikens. See, Cisne is also the leader of the Gongaga Youth Coalition, or GYC, a local band of guerrilla fighters who defend the village from monsters. This is where we see some cool, unique costume designs. They wear long bracers and gloves. And sturdy leathers with tight wraps on their waists. They carry spears with these intricate pictographic markings.
We're not only responsible for keeping people safe, but the Chocobo's healthy too. Got that?
Keep villagers safe, Chocobo's healthy. Okay, got it.
As a new recruit, you'll look after the birds and attend training exercises.
Oh, you can count on me. I love playing with Chocobos.
You know what you're in for?
When there's an incident at the nearby reactor, they're also the ones who rise up to band the town together and escort the people to safety.
Stay calm, everyone! The Coalition is on it! Please keep moving in an orderly fashion!
We're here for you, no matter what.
You'll all be okay. This way! That's the Shinra military, isn't it?
Here we can see the interior of their HQ too, where they're stocked up with all kinds of weapons including bayonets, axes, and swords.
Hot damn, now that is a sword. With gear like that, you'll gotta be Shinra.
Just outside HQ, they'll do stretches and squats to keep tip-top.
And begin! Next up is soldier squats, people! Ready? Begin!
Little touches like this make the place feel almost haunted by Zack's memory. There are echoes of him everywhere. Outside of town and a ways into the wilderness, you may also find Gongaga Port, where the mushrooms are transferred for export, and watched over by members of the GYC.
This is where we store Gongaga mushrooms until they ship. Take a whiff. Don't they smell amazing?
Let's have a look at their warehouses and storefronts. Notice this little chalkboard drawing of a pizza? Good use of those mushrooms, I guess. And the vintage tech they've salvaged in the back. Shinra outposts around the area are mostly abandoned, so it feels like they've tinkered with a lot of those places to collect this stuff. By the port side, they'll also gaze out dreamily at the water.
Lush green forests are great and all, but there's nothing more calming than the deep blue of the sea.
These designs definitely lean more stylized than average, and give Gongaga a lot of character, an underdog character. The Coalition aren't the only ones with clothes bespoke to the region either. There are a few townsfolk who wear more breezy, beige, and earthy green linens, with celestial patterns on them, or headbands. Something cool I did realize here is that even for duplicated designs, finding an NPC under the right lighting could make me appreciate them in, literally, new light. Take this farmer in the durag. His facial expression looks a lot more contemplative by firelight, and even the wrinkles on his shirt are accentuated. Contrast this with the guy behind him, who looks flat from here, even with a more unique costume. Like Nibelheim, Junon, and Corel, Gongaga was victimized by a reactor here some years ago.
Today, I'm going to teach you about an important part of our history.
And so, you'll find a monument to those lost lives, and a lot of people in mourning. This is one of the few carryovers to the town from the original, where Gongaga used to be an extremely small town with maybe a handful of NPCs, a few of whom grieve at the graveyard. In Rebirth, that mourning remains. But life also goes on. Cosmo Canyon is primarily made up of researchers and planetologists dedicated to studying the life stream deep within the planet, FF7's version of the afterlife. When we die, our bodies return to the Earth. Our soul, will, and memories, though? Those go to the life stream. Even the game's most spiritual locale is not immune from the tourists' gaze, though, and the locals know it. This is the major dichotomy between the NPCs of Cosmo Canyon. Who's here because they genuinely want to understand their place in the world? Who's here because spiritual rejuvenation is cool and aesthetic, or to pick up material souvenirs? The game's writers have thought this out on a semantic level. Fittingly, travel to the Vale isn't framed as tourism, but as a pilgrimage.
Back in the day, this used to be where folks started their pilgrimage to Cosmo Canyon.
People say that lost souls have been drawn to this place for as long as anyone can remember.
The locals here, like in Gongaga, also wear less contemporary, mass-produced attire, and elect for a more bohemian style, earthy linens and sandals instead of shoes. They wear cloth wristbands, handcrafted necklaces, and patterned headbands. while the senior surveyors who head out to research outside of town wear these thicker red robes.
Thanks for keeping watch over the Veil.
My pleasure. Are you about to head out on patrol?
Yeah. Look after this place while we're gone.
I will. You be careful out there, and may the planet keep you safe.
You'll note the guards have the same handmade spears as in Gongaga, with the runic markings. My favorite little detail, though.
There are windmills everywhere.
The Veil is powered by renewable energy in the form of windmills instead of mako reactors.
That windmill generates energy for us. Its output pales in comparison to that of a mako reactor. But it's more than enough for the people of the Veil.
And so, some of the NPCs wear robes with little windmill art on them. Note the band at the bottom of the skirt here, for instance. It's a nice, distinct bit of local iconography, and I love the touch. In the modern world, you can't totally get away from mass-produced wares, or, in this case, game assets, though. Notice that the drums here are made by Shinra. Still though, the spiritual bend is clearly a magnet for tourists. The people here aren't just interested in entertainment, but in inner rejuvenation and study too. They want to get away from the whims and whirs of constant 24/7 industry. Local peddlers take advantage of this and smartly market their wares as such. Antiques, souvenirs, infused with thoughts and prayers. Spare a penny? It's very funny.
One of these and the souls of our ancestors will surely grant you good fortune.
All of our fabulous designs have been infused with prayers to the planet.
All of the items we offer are handcrafted by the Veil's most skilled artisans.
Perhaps because things are so dire at the time of Rebirth though, tourism is up.
Wanted to get away from under Junon, but all I see are the same faces. Small world, I suppose. Screw it. I should just go to Cosmo Canyon and study planetology.
I don't know what it is, but we've seen a lot more tourists lately.
Or maybe it's because the local planetologists have been aggressively preaching in other towns. Here's our 19th major observation. You might have seen many of these NPCs long before you ever reached Cosmo Canyon, because they've been evangelizing in Kalm, and Lower Junon, and Corel and Gongaga. Anywhere that will let them, really. Let's hear them out for a bit.
Children of the planet, hear our mother's cries.
Open your hearts to the words of our mother. Beneath your rich, fertile fields, a rot runs deep.
Avalanche has warned us of what will come if we persist in our folly.
If you want proof, then look to the waters devoid of their vibrancy.
You need only look to that devastating tornado for proof of her rage.
Behold the wound in the skies above, wrought by our hands. Our mother is suffering, shrieking in pain at our unchecked cruelty.
But if we do not answer, these fecund lands will be overrun by dark fiends, by decay, become as barren as the deserts.
They ramble a lot, so I am going to cut them off, or we'll be here forever.
And don't get me started on the planetologists. Bunch of blowhards in love with the sound of their own voice.
Besides, there are more important ambient monologues in Cosmo Canyon for us to get to. One last element to note here. The book they're reading, Love Green by Naomi Sambara, it's circulating in the hands of folks all around the world. Cosmo Canyon also has ties to the original iteration of Avalanche that eventually made its way to Midgar, and some of the researchers here worry that the Midgar cell's actions are affecting public perception of them here.
Avalanche wanted, dead or alive. They've certainly made a name for themselves, haven't they?
For themselves and for us. In the public's eyes, planetologists and Avalanche are one and the same.
Out in the deserts around Cosmo Canyon, you can reunite with the Avalanche members from Remake's Intergrade DLC. Here's a cool bit about their designs. They have different lettering on their clothes, but all of them have a tiny Avalanche A colored in red, like a covert nod to their allegiance.
Hey, guys! It's me!
I'm back!
Cosmo Canyon is Nanaki, or Red 13's, hometown, so much of her visit is framed around his coming-of-age story, one of my favorite arcs from the original game. So the town isn't all navel-gazing and pretension. Everything is filtered through the party's perspective. In the scholar's eyes, the ideas they and other travelers have about their material place in the world are old ground. In ours as players, they're new perspectives. Different takes on similar themes. At times, the conclusions they reach are even hilarious. There's a particularly funny interaction just outside one of the classrooms.
I think meditation has really helped me attune to the voice of the planet. Everything she says seems so much clearer to me now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Lately, I felt like I can make out what animals are saying.
What?
No, seriously, I heard it clear as day. Some kind of dog yelling, "I'm back!"
Perfection, no notes.
Can you believe it? Nanaki's back. It's such a relief to know that he's okay.
One NPC also mentions Professor Gast having been a regular visitor to the canyon. He's an important name if you know your FF7. Now, we turn our attention to the tourists themselves. They've been spurred to come here. How is that experience? Let's find out by checking in at the Sildra Inn, named after the sea hydra from Final Fantasy V. There's a little coral pool by the entrance.
This place is divine! I can't believe you got a reservation!
But of course. Today's our anniversary, my love.
Leading into the lobby, where we find the pianist from Costa del Sol, and also dozens of other guests making plans, getting checked in, and hanging out, perhaps waiting for their friends. Once you've checked in, you get a nice bedroom with a queen-sized bed and a cave painting watching over you, as well as a beautiful, naturally formed view through the rocks. Gorgeous.
It said that these caves were formed from erosion caused by the livestream itself.
In the morning, you're also blessed with a bountiful breakfast. Just make sure to do as the locals do. Offer a prayer as thanks.
What an upstanding young man you are, helping out like this. You deserve a nice reward.
Thank you so much! Mom, look! I got some candy!
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
Remember to say a prayer before you eat it.
We offer our thanks to the Great Mother for the pleasure of sharing her bounty with others.
None of this is good enough for the longtime natives who've studied here forever, though. Here's a discussion about that dichotomy again.
These dabblers who visit the Vale are students of planetology in name only. Vapid, shallow people, tourists.
Well, some of them may have a genuine interest. Who can say for certain? They may even come to embrace the teachings.
Doubtful. True planetological enlightenment shall forever elude their grasp. They cling to Mako, and that is an addiction not easily shaken.
Who is here as a hobbyist? Who's here to actually learn? There's a lady by the entrance who hasn't even spoken to anyone yet and already talks of feeling like a whole new person.
My soul feels rejuvenated already.
Well, we're not like those tourists, are we?
The River of Lights is a sacred ritual, not some tourist attraction.
Let's see what the Vale has to offer for those interested in learning. First, there is the bonfire and the River of Lights. The townspeople believe this fire represents the life stream and never extinguishes. Not in wind, not in rain.
May the planet guide us all.
O Great Mother, from whom all blessings may the planet, we beseech you.
And we can see them circling laps around it in ceremony. At night, they float lanterns from it, meant to represent those no longer with us. Here's a look at those watching.
The River of Lights, huh? I saw something about that in the brochure.
I prefer the original's iteration of the scene where tourists were basically a non-issue and we just reflected with the party. But in present day, the crowdedness around the bonfire, the people incessantly snapping pictures, the ogling, all felt a bit more real to the moment. That doesn't mean the ceremony still isn't beautiful. At the inn, local musicians sing The Promised Land, the ambient Latin hymn from the movie Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. It's a beautiful moment, and a reference that actually means something. Takeaway 20 is a big one with a whole lot of ambient dialogue to get through, so I'm going to be selective and summarize as needed. Planetologists at Cosmo Canyon hold seminars for those visiting, and these seminars are where Rebirth hosts its most introspective NPCs. There's a larger man here who talks about his struggles with his body image. His dad used to say him being twice as large meant he took twice as much energy from the planet.
According to him, a big kid like me was using twice as much spiritual energy as other folks, and I was a burden on the planet. But he was wrong. That extra energy I received from the planet, it was a blessing.
He's realizing that's not true. He's nourished and wants to give back to the world with his art. There's an ex-Shinra employee on a redemption arc. He's seen the damage the company's wrought and had nightmares about it. Now, he's here to see if he can undo some of that.
I used to work for Shinra, up until a few years ago. Was a maintenance guy in a reactor. It's a dangerous job. Costs a lot of people their health.
You remember the pianist and his husband coming to the realization there's more than one way to grow a family and nurture life? The same breakthrough happens here for a couple who are struggling with fertility.
We'd been trying for so long to have a child, but nothing seemed to be working. We'd gone through every treatment under the sun. It was tough. After years, we started to wonder if something else was going on. Like maybe we'd been cut off from the planet, from its energy.
But then we realized that there were other ways to nurture life, besides raising a family. We could plant trees, grow crops, or even help children who had lost their parents. All life returns to the planet and is reborn eventually. We could still contribute to the cycle, just not in the way we'd planned.
In most games, these stories would be enough to sustain entire side quests, but Rebirth relegates all of it to a quiet classroom, people sitting in a circle. The most crucial of these is a theory posited by one of the attendees. If our souls return to the lifestream, does that include our hopes and dreams too? Can our interior thoughts influence or live on in the lifestream?
So, my parents are no longer with us. Here, that is. But I believe they're still out there, on another plane. I've been reading a bunch of theories about this alternate world in the hope of going there someday. And over the course of my studies, I stumbled across a fascinating theory. It addressed the issue of what the lifestream is, arguing that spiritual energy is actually a manifestation of our knowledge and memories. Like I said, it's a fascinating theory, but it's incomplete. What about our hopes and dreams? We remember those, don't we? So what if spiritual energy doesn't distinguish between our real, lived memories and the unrealized desires buried deep in our hearts? What if coming into contact with that energy allowed us to peer through the looking glass, so to speak? It's just an idea, but I hope to find the truth someday.
I love the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake, but found myself a bit numbed by the end of Rebirth. I am not a big fan of the multiversal implications it introduces. I am worried it could be a way of Square-Enix having their cake and eating it too. A multiverse is an easy solution that both gives the fans all the surprises they want, and the inevitable tragedy the original is so famous for, all at once. But if it is tethered to the lifestream and grounded in the way this woman theorizes, if it means something about our hopes and dreams as material things that might live on without materiality, I do think there is something genuinely interesting the games could explore here, something consistent with the themes of the original. If this is what the glimpses of alternate timelines we've seen in these games mean, then Cosmo Canyon offers fascinating commentary about why we turn to the question of what if in the first place. A multiverse is a broad blockbuster idea, informed by a small and intimate question. What if? Here, the game refocuses that idea on that intimate question. on something human, hopes and voids contained within every ordinary person. An Elseworld is not a solution. It is a dream. It is a regret. Couldn't that also matter, materially? It is the same intimate question that drives so much of the game's stakes with regards to Aerith and to Zack and to the fate of the planet. What if? There's an excellent video by SubTXT that examines this on the level of the larger story that I highly recommend. On the level I'm looking at, I don't think it's an accident that so many of the regrets NPCs struggle with are framed as wishes they could live entirely different lives, entirely different realities. This may be concentrated in Cosmo Canyon, but it also extends beyond. Here's a man in Corel expressing the same sentiment.
Wish I could go back and do it all over again. Try setting off for a parallel world, maybe.
Ultimately, Rebirth's NPCs don't just flesh out its world and external conflict, but its motifs and the main character's interior conflicts too. All the game's themes converge here, at this seminar. People sharing stories, sharing ideas, thinking about their very bodies, and sharing possibilities. I think it's fair to say I've spent a lot of time with video game NPCs. Few have inspired the kind of sonder these conversations did, and all in a game with one of the most simplistic approaches to NPC design there is. Across all its different locales, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is deeply interested in the rifts between the real and the artificial, the natural world and the constructed one. An early line sums it up best. Aerith is mesmerized by the beauty and greenery that surrounds them outside of Midgar, by how much of it feels evergreen. But as Red 13 notes, that beauty is deceptive. There's an ugly truth hiding beneath its surface. Shinra is every bit as present and exploitative out here as anywhere else, and all they've done is a better job of hiding it. But who cares to look at or document that ugliness when there's so much shine here to distract us? There is a deep focus on the tourism industry as yet another extension of the Shinra machine, and yet, even our heroes are not immune from participating in it. As a game about making the most of the time you have with the people you love, and about making memories with them, that contradiction feels apt. The Gold Saucer sucks as an institution, and yet it's fun to be in. Of course I want to ride the Sky Wheel, and the common folk are no different. They're out in full force, traveling and taking photos, and burying their heads in games, and making the best of the time they have together, while Shinra continues to drain the world around them. We do have one final stop on this tour, and it comes with spoilers for both the original Final Fantasy VII and Rebirth itself. Although Cloud and his friends left Midgar at the end of Remake, we get to revisit its Undercity from a few new perspectives. Near the end of the game, there's a flashback to a young Aerith's first time in the city. She wanders around, looking for help for her sick mom, but outside of a few scripted encounters, most folks completely ignore her.
Do you know a doctor? Can you help me? My mom is sick.
Bug someone else.
They just go about their own lives. That's why this singular woman, slouched on the ground, stood out to me. She looks down on her luck herself.
Can you help me?
Good luck finding help around here.
So she at least acknowledges you for trying her. She can't give you anything, she doesn't care about you, but she sees you. That means something. Nothing good, but nothing as bad as outright apathy. It's also a good portrayal of people succumbing to diffusion of responsibility. NPCs who are clustered together find it easy to ignore you and return to their regularly scheduled conversations. NPCs who are singled out might feel more of a need to comment, either to be harsh or just to commiserate. Midgar is a city of contradictions. Residents here are forced to live under Shinra's literal shadow, but also often desperate to be recognized by the corporation, which dangles overhead as a distant promise of a better life. In the Midgar slums, you could see the children playing soldier, and also hopping on rubber tires and playing rock, paper, scissors, climbing all over the junkyard and dancing on piles of scrap, seesawing on broken wheelbarrows, playing red light, green light in the alleyways. Like the kids elsewhere in the world, they find joy amidst the rubble, but because of the city's cosmopolitan nature, there's really no distinction between games inspired by Shinra and games in the natural world around them. For the grown-ups, this is a thankless place, but they chase the thanks they know they will not get. They seek self-fulfillment in their work above the plate, before returning via train to a home hundreds of stories below. Or they drown their sorrows in Wall Market, a cheap pale imitation of the actual entertainment districts beyond their walls. Rebirth mostly uses new character models, so you won't necessarily see the same generic NPCs from Remake, even in these familiar parts of the city. But you will see familiar attire and trends. The other times you visit it are as Zack in an alternate timeline. In this Midgar, so much of the artifice of Rebirth's world falls away. Ironically, it falls away because these people have realized they're in a doomed world on the cusp of reality. The NPCs start quitting their jobs and planning vacations outside the city, and becoming their most genuine selves, because now they're suddenly confronted with their own mortality. Why not make the most of what they have left? One man decides he no longer cares for the law.
Hell with it! Let's just do what we want! Start by robbing folks and stocking up on gil.
Quit it. You're not fooling anyone.
Shut up! Once we're loaded, we can drown ourselves in ooze!
You're scared.
Of course I am! Don't act like you're not!
Miss Folia, a teacher from Remake who moonlit as a dancer.
Aren't you that Leaf House?
Hey! What the hell, Merc? If you must know, I've wanted to be a dancer ever since I was a little girl. I come here at night to live the dream. I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell the children, okay?
Reveals her second job to her students in an attempt to distract them.
Come on, everyone.
Are we never gonna get to people?
Let's all dance!
A couple expects a baby. Self-reflexively, the man jumps to guard his wife if you get close.
Don't know.
I just wish we could have seen their face.
Hey, let's give them a name. We may not know what's gonna happen, but I want to call them by their name, at least.
I like that. So much to be grateful. We'll give them a name, and we'll be a family.
They decide, together, to choose a name for the child no matter what fate may have in store. There's no real evidence this is the real Midgar, but its people drop their facades and feel real, here at the crossroads, here at the end.
Why don't we all go camping? Might as well get some use out of the new car.
You mean it? Awesome! But don't you have to go to work?
Not to worry. I already put in my resignation. I'm a free man now.
During the game's climax, Cloud ends up in this pocket reality for a moment too. He's pulled into a dreamlike date with Aerith. During the sequence, the player is prompted with a series of choices that ultimately don't mean anything. The end results are always prescripted. Your destiny, the game implies, might be starbound too. You can only delay the inevitable for so long. You can only be in denial for so long. Anyway, say cheese? Snaps is not the only unique photographer in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There are two others worth mentioning. Way earlier, I spoke about Nibelheim not being real, just a product of Cloud's memories and of Shinra's censorship board. However, we can see the true version of it in real time in the prequel Crisis Core, which was recently remade for modern consoles. Now, this remaster mainly took design cues from FF7 Remake, not Rebirth, when it came to NPC designs, so you won't see much overlap with what we're seeing in Rebirth right now. There's one notable exception though. The photographer who lives here does have the same design. He's a unique NPC, and he's highlighted as such.
Okay, here we go!
It reminds me of how he also shared the same design between FF7 Original and Crisis Core Original. It's a nice touch, marking that he, or at least the photo he takes, is an important part of the story. In the original, this photo is a pivotal marker of Cloud's delusion, a physical manifestation of the gap between the remembered and the real.
You want me to take your photo? Sorry, but I can't afford to waste my film on,
Who are you again?
Then there's the photographer in Midgar itself. You can see people lining up for him in Zack's sections, all desperate to have something about their lives immortalized here as a memento. They want one last memory, one last artifact proving that they lived, and they were together, to hold on to here at the end.
If this is gonna be our last picture together, I want it done by a pro.
Should have taken more pics together while we had the chance.
Wait, you mean it? One happy memory coming right up. Smile.
Later, you join the line. You bust the cutest dang pose you can, but ultimately, the photographer doesn't pick you. He picks some random others. For more reasons than I can write, it's one of my favorite scenes in the series, both emotionally and thematically. This entire sequence is itself a snapshot, an unmoving moment in time where your choices are rendered meaningless and all there is to do is to make the most of the time you have. Cherish that moment. Make that last memory. See that couple bicker and remember, this is how life was. See those friends embrace, remember, this is how life was. Doesn't that have meaning in and of itself? Isn't that a choice in and of itself? Once again, a photograph that doesn't even exist, cannot exist, separates the remembered from the real. Unlike a lot of people in the VP space, I'm not a professional photographer. I don't need every photo mode to be perfect. But my final takeaway is that in FF7 Rebirth, the camera matters. Cameras keep showing up as an important recurring motif. They document snapshots of my happiest moments with Tifa, with Aerith, with Red and Barret and Yuffie. They document the party's emotions and maybe even their history. They document the planet in its natural state. And Rebirth makes this point in multiple side quests. It makes the point in a surprising number of NPC vignettes too. I just wish it could make that point through the gameplay as well as FF15 before it did. But maybe there's a counterpoint to that. Throughout the game we see juxtapositions of reality and artifice, of natural and constructed, of ephemeral and eternal. But these aren't binaries. Photos can immortalize moments in time, but the moments themselves are fleeting, evanescent things. So maybe, in the absence of a good camera, we can at least learn to surrender ourselves to the moments with our loved ones instead. Cherish them. Remember, this is how life was, how the people were. Remember. Remember. Hey! Thanks so much for watching that. This video is actually part of a series in which I look at NPCs and even more games that pique my interest. I also make video essays about games, movies, and all that good stuff. So if you like my work, consider subscribing. I've linked my Ko-Fi below too. It's an optional tip jar if you want to throw a sandwich or coffee my way or something. Last but not least, I've included links to the social media pages where I post my photos, down below in the description. Juxtaposed with my photos, you might find some short stories I've come up with about the various NPCs I've looked at. So, enjoy? Thank you again for sticking around, and until next time, remember that every stranger on the street's got a story, and every story can only get stranger.